we do hard workouts, there has to be something that's teaching you what to do with where your mind goes in those workouts, right? So in what we get from that is necessarily access to that extra level, right? So when I say like, you know, raise the floor and push the ceiling, you now have created more bandwidth mentally. Clearly there's a level of physical limitation that you may have, but if I know that this workout will suck, but mentally I can take myself to a dark space and just continue to do it, well, I've created, like I said, this ability to kind of separate myself from the next person.
Man of Mastery Podcast, episode 79, Beyond Fitness. Hey guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Just want to say that in a very straightforward and succinct manner. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I guarantee it's going to be well spent today in this episode with David Pereira. David is a Navy combat veteran and Purple Heart recipient. He owns a high-end personal training gym in New Jersey. He's a creator of a fitness program called Beyond Fitness, and he's got an app rolling out. So he works virtually beyond the walls of that gym through this program, Beyond Fitness, and through this new app he's rolling out this spring to people all over the world. You know, David talks in today's episode about training to raise your floor and raise your ceiling, meaning in what we believe and what we know to be possible for ourselves, raising those frames of reference. And it's only impossible until it's not. We have to know it, we have to believe it, and then oftentimes we have to do it to prove it to ourselves. And then we've got a new floor, and then we create a new ceiling of what's possible. David and I recorded this one a little while back, and I'm excited to air it when I am, because while it airs, I will be off doing the same sort of thing, trying to raise my floor, raise my ceiling. I'm headed off to a 75-hour training crucible. And it seems a little crazy to some people. It seems a little crazy to me sometimes. But when people ask, like, what are you training for? The reality is I'm training for life, just like you are, right? We're all training for life. The things that we expect, and then all more to the point, the things that we don't expect, all the unexpected things in life. So I'm taking a particular type of training right now, and I'm taking a particular set of things I really value out of this conversation with David to go apply in that training and my ongoing training. But I would challenge you to listen to this episode about Beyond Fitness, because it's like Lance Armstrong said, right? It's not about the bike. This is about more than just training physically. It's about training mentally. It's about more than just training in the gym and for the gym and athletically. It's about training for life. So no matter what you like to challenge yourself with, no matter what you're learning right now that's new, no matter what that looks like for you, I guarantee you're going to find some inspiration and some action you can take away from today's episode, Beyond Fitness. Rock. All right, we're rolling today. It's my pleasure to welcome today's guest is David Pereira. He's a Navy combat veteran and Purple Heart recipient. He's also the owner and creator of FENIX, a personal training facility located in New Jersey, just outside of New York City, and the creator of the Beyond Fitness program. David's passionate about helping successful people develop mental toughness, the mindset that allows them to shift their perspective and excel in more aspects of their lives. So, David, welcome. Great to have you.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk. You got a lot of years of service behind you. I appreciate your service. Thank you. And what you're doing today as well, serving through the gym, and really you are a coach of all sorts, including life coach. So for folks that may be local to New York and your FENIX facility in New Jersey, great. But for all of the audience, I think you're accessible, and we're going to talk about today what you do and how you serve your audience, even remotely or digitally, virtually. Mindset. So on this show, we talk about the life's journey, what I call the mastery journey, which is a very jagged path. And it's really just about men working on themselves to be better versions of themselves in every way. And to me, at least, mindset and that mental toughness component are a really core piece of everything.
Mhm.
So, could you introduce a little bit more yourself and really how that is core to what you do in the physical training world and maybe even beyond?
Yes, yes, Mike, thanks. So myself, Navy combat veteran. I'm a hospital corpsman, if anybody is familiar with the Navy. So my time has been spent all greenside, which is attached to the Marine Corps. So I've actually been on a ship maybe one time. I couldn't find my way around it, so don't ask me any questions about that. But that's been my specific experience with the military and in the Navy, being engaged and attached to the Marine Corps and doing all the fun stuff that they get to do when it comes to getting their hands dirty. I deployed back in 2011 when I was out in Afghanistan, hospital corpsman again, like I said, and my last mission in country is when I received my Purple Heart from rolling over a improvised explosive device, which is an IED for short, detonated directly under my seat. It happened to be the third IED that I experienced on deployment, but unfortunately enough, the one that awarded me my Purple Heart. Upon transitioning back into the military or transitioning back into the civilian side after that deployment, that's where I think I started to have to extract some of those principles that the military has taught me, in terms of mental toughness and discipline and actually just taking responsibility for where you were. Um, as a veteran, and I'm sure other veterans have potentially ever faced this, it's like you have the sense of entitlement. People owe you something based on the experience that you've had or the sacrifices that you've made, and rightfully so, depending on the perspective. But that's what I had coming back in 2011. I had like this chip on my shoulder, this idea that everybody owed me something, but in actuality, no one owed me anything. Like, of course, people were grateful for my level of sacrifice and the courage that I had to do what I did. But at the end of the day, life also doesn't care, and that's what I had to tell myself when it came time to either get myself back in shape, get back in school. Basically, like I said, apply those principles that the military has basically ingrained into me. So to to jump into it, like I was like, up 30 pounds from being on deployment, right? Marines like to do nothing but work out, eat, clean their weapon, and go on missions. Like that's it, right? It's like so I was up 30 pounds from what I call my normal weight, and post deployment, I just wanted to rest for like months on end and do nothing. But I noticed that that was just making me more depressed. That was making me more in my head. And that also made me feel more isolated. And I had to challenge myself in a way to just tell myself that, like, no one's going to come save me. No one cares about what you've been through, but you should use it as your advantage because you actually experienced it. And that was kind of the switch that was flipped for me, jumping into my career, finishing school, and ultimately propelling me to where I am today.
Wow. That seems so applicable right now, so timely
Mhm.
for maybe everyone that has been through 2020, COVID, pandemic, lockdown, and to a large degree, I'm in California, you're in New York. We're parts of the
Mhm.
country that are still very strict. I know a lot of us ended up in a similar place of just kind of isolated, like you said, maybe got lazy,
Mhm.
ate too much, drank too much, whatever, too much Netflix, whatever it looked like for the last year. But
Yeah.
at some point, you got to sort of pull yourself up.
Mhm.
And right, as much as as you served, at the end of the day, life doesn't care, right? Nobody really
Yes.
owes any of us anything, and it's up to
Yes.
us to figure it out. And it's up to us to self motivate.
Yes, I have this internal dialogue, and the way I see this, it could be extreme and it could be cold, depending on how in tune you are with your feelings and emotions. But I consider life an unbiased person, right? Like they don't care, they don't celebrate the people who only do good, and they don't punish the people that only like it doesn't only punish the people that only do bad, right? It just doesn't care. But one trend that we can look at is that it does favor those who work hard and those who continuously do the monotonous things and sacrifice. So when you see that and when you understand that perspective, no thing in your life can be too hard, right? Or let me rephrase that. Nothing in your life can be too limiting, right? It's either going to help you surmount that thing that you're attempting to do, or you are going to be in your head enough to limit yourself, right? So when I when I say like life doesn't care, life doesn't give a shit, it's like you're only as good as like what you did yesterday. Today's a new day. You got something to prove. You start with a zero balance. Go get it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the toll and the mantra that I internally kind of keep to remind myself that I need to just go get it and go earn it every day.
every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You also, I've heard the saying, and I think you've got it as well. How you do anything is how you do everything. Does that relate back to breaking it down to a daily basis or consistency or discipline that helps fuel you?
Yes, I definitely believe so. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Now, I'm not going to get as extreme and say it's so literal, right? Like, I mean, I'd like to think I'm a pretty good athlete, but if I step on the golf course, like I'm a terrible athlete, right? Like that doesn't, I'm not that good. It doesn't translate, right? But if you are going to be honest with yourself about certain things that you want in life, right? Certain milestones you want to hit, certain goals that you may have, and you place this governor on yourself of like, this is my ceiling, I actually can't get above it. Well, we'll have to audit what you're doing in your life, right? And see if it's any correlation between your limiting belief, maybe the lie that you're telling yourself, and something else that you're doing, right? For example, people who may say that they're not disciplined enough, right? Or they don't have enough willpower, right? Let's look at where you might also not have willpower as it pertains to um, your spending habits potentially, right? Right. You think it's just a nutritional thing, right? Like, you don't have the willpower to say no to the donut, or you don't have the willpower to prep in advance, but like, if you're spending, more than you probably bring in, or you're in a load of debt, or, these are just correlations that we attempt to make. Now that comes out of being honest and being wanting to be coached, and having the ability to somebody to hold you accountable to certain things. But there can definitely be a strong correlation between some of the habits that you may have that you unknowingly do in other aspects of your life.
I never thought about it that way, but I am a firm believer from my own experience, and I know there's a lot of science to this as well, that working on getting better at yourself pays back in so many ways. Literally, you could draw a line between working on yourself and showing up better at work, being more successful career wise as a leader. And maybe it is because there are those habits or those patterns that either you improve all of them
Hmm.
almost by accident, work on some of them, you get better at all of them, or you're going to get worse and slip in all of them. You may not realize the effects.
Hmm. And I'm sure, like, even working on yourself, and which some may, excuse me, stand on one side and think of it as selfish, or like they're not entitled to working on themselves. But if you take that time to work on yourself, you actually, like you said, to your point, you probably become a better version of yourself and a better person to ultimately be around. Therefore,
Right.
you can potentially bring out more in other people because you're simply better to be around, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to get better at being a father. You're going to get better at being a husband. You're going to get better at being a leader at work.
Hmm.
I'm convinced you work on yourself, you're gonna earn more. You're gonna contribute more to the world. You're gonna be able to give back more. You're gonna serve your community. It's just it's either an upward spiral or a downward spiral, in my experience.
But it'll definitely put you in a position to have more opportunities um, to do that research, right? To see if this is a distraction, or if this is something that's going to add to my bottom line, right? Is this something that I should focus on, or is this something that I shouldn't be focusing on, right? Being in that constant pursuit, not constant in the sense of like wearing yourself thin, but constantly knowing that you should try and improve, is going to continue to let you see things at a different playing field, like see the game at a different speed, you know?
Right. Right. Awareness. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
awareness. So how do you let's talk through the mental toughness thing, right? Because that would be one element that you could work on, people could work on, you could help us with that
Hmm.
can show up and benefit, be an asset in a lot of areas of life. What are some ways you work with people on mental toughness? We're not going to boot camp with you
Hmm.
for the
You don't.
Marines or the Navy. Maybe not literally. I don't know what it looks like at the FENIX gym.
Hmm.
But how do we work on
For
that?
For me, it's creating rigidity and creating follow through, right? We live in an environment where, let's call it microwave society, right? We want instant gratification. We want results yesterday. We can Google. We have Google at our fingertips for any information that we want. But the application is the disconnect and the separator of most, right? So when it comes to building mental toughness and this sort of hacking discipline, it's to be very extreme so this way you're able to taper down. So to put that in a deeper perspective, we all have heard of the 80-20 principle, right? And we understand the concept behind that. But most people inversely live the 80-20 principle, right? They're like 80% loose, 20% rigid, right? And it's only in I believe, and what in my experience of coaching people, it's taking people to that level in which they're able to see what 100% feels like. What is strict, rigid, no justification, no compromise look like? What does it feel like? And then allow me to taper off, right? Because if you've understood what it's like to max out, and then you can kind of set your own pace, well, if you ever need to double down and throttle into it again, you can get back up to it, right? So it's creating rigidity, it's creating structure in which people don't compromise. And to the long and short of it is to do what the fuck you say you're gonna do. You know what I mean? It's just like if we're gonna write down a plan, we're gonna do it whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, whether you're tired, whether it's dark outside, whatever the case may be, we're gonna do it, and treating that as that whole experience of doing it in that vacuum of isolation, doing that multiple times, time and time again, creates this desensitized, calloused mindset, basically an approach to, hey, I'm actually not phased by my environment, I'm not affected by what's going on, I am and long and short, you become mentally tough.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. So maybe to play that back a little bit. So take people, give them a glimmer of what it looks like to show up at 100%, and then
Mhm.
maybe dial it back to 80. Something that's a little more sustainable across time. What about somebody like David Goggins will say that we've got these built-in survival mechanisms. So when your mind and your body, whichever comes first, says stop, in reality, I think he likes to say you're probably at like 40 or 50% of your true potential. So
Mhm.
how do you start to train not only, doing stuff consistently, maybe stuff that sucks, maybe because it's dark or it's raining or like, so my son, he just turned 13. Last year, he did 20 burpees every day for 366 days. And this year, he was doing them again. He's doing 21, but he does 2 push-ups at the bottom. So he's kind of switched it up. And people go, "Oh, we saw him online, he's crushing it." Yes, he's crushing it, but what you don't see in outside the Instagram view is a lot of days that's a struggle.
Mhm.
It's a struggle to find that consistency, but even that struggle is not the same as figuring out what true potential you have, what true 100% looks like.
Yes. So and to David Goggins' point, right? He's awesome and a super hard charger. That is exactly what I was trying to say before. It's like most people justify for their convenience or they justify for their comfort. So that point in which you feel like, oh, I should pull back, or this is my all, and David Goggins says that's your 40 or 50% mark, like to keep going, like that's them wanting to stay in their comfort zone, right? And when I work with clients, I tell them that we're attempting to do, two things, right? Most think that they start the process and we want to raise the ceiling as to what they're capable of, but we also want to raise the floor as to what their baseline now is, right? So we raise the floor and we push the ceiling. That increases capacity overall. So now my baseline and my standards for myself are what somebody sees on their best day. You know what I mean? And I won't compromise that because I've created that new subset and that substandard for myself.
Can you give me a simple example? Or I really like to get into actionable stuff, right? So if
Mhm.
somebody hears this, wants to work with David, awesome, right? I'm sure you got a lot of dynamic stuff to offer, but could you pick one thing that would be actionable for somebody to try as a routine or a practice to start to raise the ceiling and raise the floor?
Yeah, so we use that correlation between fitness and their nutrition
Okay.
specifically, and how it all coincides to both and what they're capable of. But if we're going to apply that in one vector, let's call it their fitness, um, that would be simply like having these workouts that not just beat the shit out of them for more or less like because when you do a hard workout, don't get me wrong, like let's put David Goggins into perspective again. Like he says all this stuff while he's running, right? And
Right.
he's putting it into a perspective that makes sense, that allows you to understand that hardship. So when we do hard workouts, there has to be something that's teaching you what to do with where your mind goes in those workouts, right? So in what we get from that is necessarily access to that extra level, right? So when I say like, you know, raise the floor and push the ceiling, you now have created more bandwidth mentally. Clearly there's a level of physical limitation that you may have, but if I know that this workout will suck, but mentally I can take myself to a dark space and just continue to do it, well, I've created, like I said, this ability to kind of separate myself from the next person, right? So we use workouts specifically to tap into that, right? Can you take yourself to a dark space? Can you go all in on this workout and not be concerned with like not to say your breathing, but the things that would normally annoy you, normally get to you. That's built up over time, right? But it's only having like the right coach to explain that to you. Hey, this is what we just did, and this is why we did it. Like insert David Goggins, right? Like
Right.
this is why we did it, right? Dark space, right? Or tap into your mind. Um, so that's one aspect of how we use that. The other side is, nutrition is just being spot on. Like you're an adult at the end of the day, right? Like if you want to hold yourself accountable and responsible to something, you think about like the example that you're trying to set for somebody, right? Let's call it your kids, let's call it your loved ones, you call it your family. Um, and whatever we write down and whatever we're saying we're going to do, we're going to do it, but we're just going to do it as best as we can do it today. And it's again through that repetition, we're able to, like I said, expand and separate ourselves from the person who's not able to do that or not fully understanding of the why we're doing it.
So if I think about it this way, it's easy to read in a book, right? I can go
Mm-hmm.
read Living with a Seal, or I can read any number of books about mental toughness, even the practices, whether it's breathing or awareness or visualization or mindfulness, whatever the tool might be, totally different than putting it into practice, and different situations and repetitions, just getting uncomfortable and then applying it in those situations. So I don't know, maybe let me test another example on you. My
Mm-hmm.
I love using my son because he and I do all this craziness together. My wife thinks we're not
That's
quite
awesome.
right, and maybe she's right. So we went and did a father son event a few weeks ago, and part of it was a 3-minute ice bath up to our necks at 31 degrees. So you jump in the ice bath, and all kinds of craziness happens
Mm-hmm.
physically, mentally, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one where I think if you come into that with zero, maybe zero prep and zero tools, you don't know what to do about it. You might or might not stick it out, maybe just through pure grit. But we had some breathing techniques, and we had some other stuff to work on our physiology, and then our emotions around it. Would that be kind of an example of types of things you could do to put tools in practice?
Yes, because imagine if you got into, so that's the first time, right? Like that you guys have done that, right? Now,
Second time for
imagine,
him.
oh,
Yeah.
second time. Wow,
Yeah.
second time for him, first time for
Yeah.
you.
No, I've done it a few times. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. But so in your head, you know what to expect, right?
Hmm.
And you're no longer like psyched out about it. Now, the person who's doing that for the first time has a completely different mindset and potentially expectation of what that whole experience would be like. Now, consider this the workout, consider what you did the workout. If they said, hey, we're going to sit in it for 4 minutes, now that might take your head from this is what I expect when I do it at 3 to a different place. Like,
Right.
I don't know if I can do it for 4, right? But it's only through that experience of having done it already and taking yourself to this cold and dark place, literally,
Literally.
um literally, to understand what your mind is actually capable of doing. And you're going to have a slight conversation with yourself. I already did it for 3. I can definitely do it for 4. Or you're going to say, that third minute was my ceiling. I don't know if I can get there. Right. So one of those two instances are going to occur. And so I definitely think that that definitely helps, again, paint the picture of what it's like to push the ceiling a little bit higher.
So you think it's not just taking tools like you might teach as a coach and putting them into practice, but also just having these data points, these experiences that you could fall back on. Like I did that and that sucked really bad, or I did that and that was really shitty. So
Hmm.
so now that I'm experiencing this, I can get through this because I've been through all that other crappy stuff.
Exactly. Like I think in the book Grit, they did this Harvard study of kids running on this treadmill at top speed and see how long they could run for, right? And the idea was to see like what was their max time at top speed that they can run, and whatever they got off, and then they were invited back to do it again. And you have this mindset, I did 40 seconds, I'm going to kill myself to do 41, right? Like to beat it, right? Because you understand what the expectation is. So yeah, those, you should, be treating your workouts like that. You should be treating your hard workouts especially like that, just so you're able to get the most out of it, not just the physical exhaustion that comes with it.
Yeah, and I guess we thrive off of each other on those experiences too. You see records that get broken, records that hold for a long, long time, like in physical sports, and then all of a sudden you'll have all kinds of people, breaking the same record.
Hmm.
Like the how long it takes to run a mile or a breath hold underwater or something like that, right? Seems impossible, and then once somebody hits it, a bunch of people hit it just because maybe their frame of reference or their belief system changed.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And that's why you saw so many people after the 4 minute mile was broken,
Right.
go ahead and do that. It's because they by doing it, by sheer existence of doing it, not myself but that person who did it first, they created a new floor. They're like, okay, well, this is possible, and then everybody trained to now this level, and then that's where they were able to push it and continue to push it, and ultimately up to the stage of what was it, the last marathon that was run, that was under what, two
Sub
hours or
two
something.
hour. Yeah.
Crazy, right? It's like
Right.
that was unheard of like a decade ago,
Right.
but sure enough, if you're able to push yourself to create that new standard, other people will follow suit as well.
And I'm not sure if that guy did the sub 2 hours, but I know there are some very fast marathon times now that there are complete nasal breathing, right? So people that
Mm.
are kind of staying in sort of that first couple gears of
Hmm.
controlling their breath, controlling their heart rate, but I mean, they're booking it.
It's an amazing feat. I mean, even sitting still and doing complete nasal breathing is a challenge. So I can imagine what running at a 5 minute mile, 4:30 mile pace is like.
So then the stuff that's we do fun stuff. I call it fun. Again, my wife thinks I'm a little crazy. Do fun stuff physically, and we can incorporate that into fitness routines, nutrition routines, get healthier, get in better shape. People love that just from feeling good, looking good. But then extend that, right? I call these manufactured crucibles, doing hard things on purpose, because we can't control when life is going to throw something hard at us, right? Like quarantine or a tragedy or whatever, you lose a job. How do building those mental toughness muscles, to call it that, help show up for when life throws its curveballs?
It helps you, you touched on this before, build that frame of reference, right? When I have an idea in my head and almost like a bookmark as to when something was potentially the hardest it's ever been in my life, right? Or insurmountable in my life, then cool, I'll save that chapter until I need to refer back to it. Throw in 2020, did you have something that was, similar to this? You talk about people who are in finance and quarantine hit, they talk about the last time, like, the 2008 bubble or something. I don't, I was just getting out of high school, I didn't know what that was, but the people in finance definitely do, and people before that talked about like the dot-com era, right? Like, and that's how, as it pertains to business, so it's all frame of reference. And if you speak to anyone like Mike, I'm sure your schedule is super busy, super compact, super stressful, and you are, relative to you, probably the busiest person in the world. Your wife probably wouldn't agree, but but relative to anyone, their life is hard, their life is probably stressful, and no one gets it, right? No one gets it. So with that being said, you probably have something in your life that you can fall back on and say, hey, this was the hard thing that I did that no one else experienced. Can I use it to help me get through this next thing that I'm going through, or this now thing that I'm facing? So that frame of reference and having that in your back pocket to use as a tool will be that thing that works in your benefit should life throw something at you.
So in addition to having my own relative, bookmark frame of reference that I can fall back on because nobody else is going to do it for me, how important do you think it is to who you surround yourself with in your social life, in your personal life, in your training for
That
another frame of reference?
Well, that's definitely important, right? Like we're in the military and you're working with your guys. The camaraderie is at, an all-time high when you guys are doing the hardest stuff that you've ever done, right? And it's that shared sacrifice and that shared hardship and that shared pain that allow you to be the thing that uplift one another, right? Like you want to look to your left, you want to look to your right and know that someone's got your back, but you want to look to your left, you want to look to your right and knowing that you're not going to quit because the other person's watching you. So that has that same connotation as it pertains to society and the civilian world of who you surround yourself with. Are they sharing the sacrifice with you, or are they just discussing it, at arm's reach? Do they have your back, or are they just, sending you quotes from Instagram to give you like uplifting words, right? Like,
Right.
so the environment is super important. It has to be conducive to your overall growth and safety. And ultimately, when you're in a hard experience, you want to feel safe, right? You want to know that you have help of others, you have reach of others, and what may have you. So it is one of the most important things because you're not going to get anywhere, fulfilling in life by yourself,
Right.
right? So
Right.
that environment is also going to be the thing that leads you to success at the end of the day as well.
Environment. Yeah, it's a great way to say it. I keep having this conversation with people about 2020 where I I throw out the caveat, right? I respect that it has been financially and from a health and life perspective devastating for so many people and have lost family members. Not to disregard that by any means, but at the same time, I feel like and so many people that I am lucky to be around feel like we were thriving in 2020. And maybe that's just perspective. Yeah, it's hard for my son to be doing school remotely, but we get to spend a ton of time together and we got freedom to do a bunch of other stuff, right? So we're just looking at the opportunities. We're looking at the positives. And then every once in a while I'll come across somebody that goes like, that was the worst year ever. And I
Hmm.
kind of look and I go, what is your environment? What is your perspective?
Well, I'll touch on that, but anytime somebody puts something definitive like that, or like let's call just defines it, like that was the worst ever, or that was the hardest thing ever. I always ask the follow up question, relative to what, you know,
Relative to what?
and right, and knowing that you have to have some kind of um, something to base it off of, then we can have a conversation. Of course, some may say relative to an easy year, but then I'm like, what year was easy, right? So that is definitely something that I make sure when every time somebody has that kind of mindset about something, or this very definitive and I don't even want to call it dogmatic, but sometimes very harsh way of looking at things, you have to say relative to what. You have to have them explain that. You have to have them take ownership of either this is a limiting belief that just popped in my head and I'm just using it, or this is not true at all, right? Like I need to fix it and change that narrative and go ahead and move forward. But for you, I definitely think, and for me as well, I mean, my business opened February 22nd of last year. We closed down March 16th. Like this is a brick and mortar that
Wow.
I had 3 weeks in running, and then we closed down for 5 months, right? So you have to be able to control, as cliche as this may sound, control the controllables. What are you able to control? The way I react, the way I
Right.
respond, and then what I do next, right? And that's kind of how you were looking at it, right? You had the silver lining to it. Like, what's the things that I've gained? What are the things that this has opened me up to? What are the things that these presented to me as opportunity, let's call it. So, are you looking at those things? More times when someone comes at it with the other approach, right, in which you said, and they say it's hard, it's like, well, what are you controlling? Are you controlling the way you actually respond and the way you feel to that, you know, and or are you letting the environment dictate how you should feel? And that's kind of what we want to explore a little bit more. And then why are you doing that? Is this a good example? And all this other stuff that we can kind of dive into a little bit deeper. But that is it. You definitely need to control and focus on what you can control. You can pay attention to the other things. They might help you and guide you in other things. But if it's literally outside of your control, what's the fuss? What are you going to do about it?
True. Even in what we might perceive or say relative to I don't know what is the best year ever,
Hmm.
how much of that was really in our control, right? We really only control ourselves, our reactions, our emotions, our attitude.
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was just going to say, like, and this is all, not to say that it all comes full circle. These are all ingredients that come into the discipline, the mental toughness. Being very much like a person that's focused and starving themselves from distractions. Like, these are all ingredients that kind of go in there. Are you able to focus on what you need to focus on? Are you able to control all the things that you can control? Are you able to stay on the beaten path of the things that are going to take you to where you want to be? Right. And we use the the popular words like mental toughness, and don't get me wrong, it's like it's out there, but it's not as black and white. It's not as binary as you either have mental toughness or you don't. You have to have all these other things that are sprinkled in there, right? And the result is a more mindful person, a more calloused mind person,
Stoic, maybe
Yeah.
would be a way to say it.
Stoic, yes, stoic.
Thank you for bringing that back to kind of how it packages. I know we're both a little tight on time today, so I want to get to how you interact with people, coaching remotely, probably one of your
Hmm.
pivots in your
Hmm.
business this year, last year. But a couple of quick ones before we jump to that. You mentioned starting every day with a zero balance. Do
Hmm.
you have a particular morning routine for yourself that you like?
I do have a particular morning routine. So my schedule starts probably 5:30 in the morning, depending on which day I'm training. So I like to be up an hour and a half at the very least, almost closer to 2 hours. So if, if you're listening to this, it's like a three something, maybe 4 o'clock wake up time. You know, and that's to at least get myself started. And I definitely have to. That's when my phone's quiet, right?
Right.
So I know I don't have to return anything. I'm not looking at it. I'm not expected to return anything. So that's where I could do either my most insightful thinking and writing, or reading, uninterrupted reading. Like, that is part of my process to get the juices going, and take my dog out for a nice, like, consistent long walk, and sip my coffee as slow as I need to. Right, those are two things that I very much was given the opportunity during the shutdown and during the pandemic. Taking my dog for a long walk and not rushing in the morning. So, like, taking my coffee and sipping it very slow, right? And enjoying every sip. So part of my routine is sticking to those things, waking up, very early, um, doing things like I enjoy, which are reading and writing, and setting the day on my pace and my tone, right? Not being in this reactive state before my day even starts. That's my typical morning start routine.
Nice.
Um, there's a few things that I experimented with in the past, whether it was trying to meditate, but because of my tinnitus, meditating is very hard. but but those are things that I very much encourage everybody to do something that they enjoy first thing in the morning. That if it was a Sunday and they were uninterrupted, what would you be spent doing? And just put that in a small corner of an hour of your day to kind of get your day started on something that feels good.
I like that starting the day, kind of of your own design. I think is Mark Cuban. I think we got everybody's got smart devices, phones now, right? And that becomes our wake up alarm, and the danger is getting sucked into that
Hmm.
device right away, right? Whatever's popping up, a message,
Hmm.
an email, social, whatever it is, right? So I think it's Mark Cuban that said that email is somebody else's to-do list for you, right? So like by jumping right into email in the morning, you're automatically giving up control to
Mhm.
everybody else that's asking for your attention or tasks or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's more times than not, you're someone's emailing you to deliver them something, right? So
Right.
I'm gonna hold off to that. I also have, I mean, depending on your line of work, like have some set times in which you do these mass communication checks, right? Whether, for me, client check-ins, service probably 300 to 400 text messages a day, right? So, but I have to have like set times in which I do that. If I was reactive to every text message I got, I would probably get nothing accomplished, right? So
Right.
definitely having those pockets in which you're like, this is when I handle this is when I handle that. Obviously, line of work dictating, but it's going to just improve your day and your overall like, brain fog, whether or not you have it.
Right. Yeah. Now I hear some people call that batch processing
Yeah.
their emails or their text messages. Um, okay. And then I was just going to ask you one more before we wrap up on where to find you and Phoenix and Beyond Fitness. Is you're a father too, I believe? Am I right?
No,
You're
I'm a
not.
dog dad. I'm a
You're a
dog dad.
dog dad. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I know we talked about family a little bit, and I wasn't
Mhm.
sure. I'll ask the question regardless. I think it's even more impactful for me as a father, but whether you're a dog dad, you're a son, you're a husband, you're a father, whatever it is, an uncle, I keep coming back to a concept of legacy. When people, there's so many people I run into that have achieved by some Western standard society a great level of success, whether they tick the
Mhm.
box in a career or financially or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, midlife, what just happened? Where was happiness? Where was fulfillment?
Mhm.
And when we start peeling those things apart, uh, legacy is a word I keep coming back to because I think all of us want to find a meaning and leave an impact on the world, preferably live an impact while we're still around. So if you think about legacy, you think about what you started with a business, you've come back, transitioned out of a military career. What are you doing with Phoenix, with Beyond Fitness? What's your vision for David Pereira's legacy on the world?
So when I think legacy, I think about like setting the example, right? And just setting the tone for what, some people may say, some people may think, or even how people believe, and see things, right? So as it pertains to Phoenix and my own legacy, I think I want to set the proper example of, helping people, what it means to help people in a non-transactional way, right? To purposeful, like, give a shit about them on purpose, right? Because when you use that word example and you set the right example to the point where they are able to elicit some change for the better, you will understand and you will get to see how they also now set their example for, their pockets and their families and their demographics and their surroundings, and this ripple effect in and of itself becomes a force multiplier. So for Phoenix, for my vision, for the business, it's all about setting the right example for trainers, setting the right example for clients, setting the right example for how we work with people, and letting our body of work in our relationships do the actual talking, right? The people that you come in contact with, and you network with, and you build relationships with, they are going to be your biggest allies when it comes to uh, helping leave that legacy and helping expand that example.
That's a great one. I love that. So being aware of the example we're setting, being responsible to setting that example and the
Mhm.
ripple effect, the force multiplier of that. Yeah, that seems obvious. Well, I love what you're doing. You know, you served our country and now the service you're providing in that example through Phoenix is awesome. Tell me a little bit more about how your coaching works, particularly from a virtual perspective.
For a virtual perspective, it's it's very simple in terms of like how we pivoted. It's minus the in-person connection.
Okay.
However, we have leveraged obviously all the technology that comes with it. So depending on what a person's coming to see us for coaching, more times than not, clients come in for nutritional coaching. We run them through our Beyond Fitness program. Not that that is a cookie cutter program, but it's a physical meets psychological approach to fitness and nutrition. And we dive in deeper to assessing what's going on, auditing what's going on, and knowing that the only way that we're going to create a strong foundation and basis is through tapping into what's limiting you, right? We talked about how we have access to all the information in the world, but the application is the separating factor. So we can't change anything physically if we don't tap into what's going on psychologically. So it's not it's not sit on this long chair and tell me your feelings psychology, but it's like you've been shooting yourself in the foot for some time. Let's figure out why we've been doing that. So working with clients, we do our check-ins, we talk about nutrition, we do it very much from the educational standpoint. We don't present you this cookie cutterish diet plan. We definitely work with what your lifestyle allows, and with stretching you, of course, and demanding some things of you. But uh, other than that, that is the most value that we deliver in terms of our experience. And then the fitness side of it is the fitness side of it. That's what a majority of people say. Hey, I can work out all day. Like I can do this all the time, right? And that's just another stimulant that we use to get the results that we want.
Yeah, it's just another, I think you called it a vector earlier, or another
Yeah.
delivery mechanism.
Hmm.
And so in that construct where we have a construct, but it's tailored, can you work towards supporting particular goals? Like for me, I love to keep stuff on the calendar, whether it's
Hmm.
some sort of crucible event or a race or something else that I know it's scary. I know I better train for it or it's really going to suck. Can you work a program around things like that?
Yes, it's we definitely deal with like excuse me. We definitely work with you know different types of people, different type of backgrounds, athletic, just your weekend warrior, general population. It all depends on what you're looking to kind of expand upon, but also optimize, right? So if you're obviously looking to get ready for a certain event, like we'll talk about what proper nutrition, proper timing, proper recovery look like, and what our approach is, and doing it in a way that's programmed that allows you to see, hey, this is what I did. I actually have the manuscript to get ready should I need to. The only difference is it's like a higher level of accountability now, right? Now you got some eyes on you. Now you got some people, coaching you through certain things, which will help you get to where you want to be. So yeah, we definitely work with that.
Perfect. Okay. And where's the best place to get in touch in terms of website or social media or how to reach you for more?
Yeah, I'm definitely active on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay.
My Instagram is at D, and there's two underscores, then my last name, Pereira. So that's my Instagram and Twitter. Our website is Phoenix, spelled FENIX .englewood.com. Um, And yeah, you can just kind of check out our website, see the good work that our trainers are doing, our staff and our team are doing with the clients that we have. And then we'll also be launching our app in the next month and a half, so we'll be able to work with clients a little bit more specifically on the online platform. But we're still working with them with the systems that we have in place now, in terms of like being a more robust system. The Phoenix app is coming at you.
Okay, perfect. Did not know about the app. That's great to know. We'll figure out when this airs, so it might be good timing for that launch.
Hmm.
And we'll get links to all your sites and social up on the show notes for this one. I checked out the website a little bit. There's a lot of richness there, including the philosophy that you've built the
Hmm.
construct around as well. So definitely encourage people to check that out. David, awesome stuff. Thank you again for how you're serving now, how you served in the past. I'm excited about the vision, mission, the legacy you're leaving, and
Thank you, Mike. I
appreciate the
appreciate
insight,
it.
man.
Mike, thank you. I appreciate the time to come out here and just chat it up with you.
Yeah, my pleasure completely. Thank you again. All right. Thank you again to David Pereira. A pleasure to learn from him and an honor to speak to somebody who went and served the way he did. Now he's come back and he's serving in an even greater capacity and greater impact to the civilian world. Make sure you go check out the show notes for this episode at manofmastery.com/078 so you can find your way to David on his website, social media, the Beyond Fitness app and program he is rolling out virtually worldwide. So contact David, awesome coach, If you're looking for somebody to help you raise your floor, raise your ceiling, and hey, he could be the guy, whether he is or not. Look, here's the challenge where I started this episode is whatever your endeavor is, whatever your challenge is, whatever you like to do, whatever you like to learn, whatever your next crucible or goal is, take some action inspiration away from this episode about perseverance, about resetting your daily balance to zero, about expanding your mental bandwidth. Take some of that from David and today's lessons. Get out there and get after it.